Hey, welcome to episode 6 of the Boxed In podcast. It's me, Garrity McOsker.
And I'm Trevor Sombrano.
Thank you guys for watching, tuning in. We got a little bit of a recap show today.
Yeah.
A lot of boxing over the weekend.
A lot of boxing for the last couple of days. Too much boxing.
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much. Not enough.
Too much. Not enough.
Never too much.
Yeah.
So Porter-Ugas.
Yeah. So Porter-Ugas, besides the fact that it was really, really cold in Carson last night, great fight, kind of fight that you want to see play out all the time. Highly competitive. Shawn Porter, just from my opinion, I thought had the majority of the early part of the fight controlled and sort of lost control. And
people were mad about the decision, man.
Yeah,
people were going crazy on social media.
Yeah, people are obviously booing in the arena. People are going crazy. It's one of these things too with like, you can be a Latin fighter and come to Los Angeles and you're Cuban and your last name is Ugas. And the crowd is going to get behind you.
Yeah, they were behind him for sure.
Yeah, I also think that if you're going to beat
coming out to a Mexican song doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, yeah, he came out to Los Tigres del Norte, which is that that's not narco, but somewhat, not really. But
don't ask me, I don't know. But
right?
it's
well, you're the one who's always in.
It's for sure.
You're always in Mexico City.
Don't blow my cover here.
Oh yeah, right. You're the one who's in Sinaloa.
Check out
Aguascalientes.
Jalisco.
Jalisco.
Check out my social media for my Instagram. There's a picture of me with the whole cowboy getup, the whole vaquero look.
Right. So,
but we're doing all legal stuff. It's chickens and agave and everything.
For the time, that's what it's under.
For now.
For now, that's what we're saying. It's chickens and agave.
Social capital, dude.
Social
keep it.
No, but back to Shawn Porter and Ugas. Yeah, the crowd was behind Ugas last night. I think that they were behind him because, obviously, I was surprised a lot of Cubans there, right?
Hey, but just Shawn Porter's got a little bit of Carson ties because doesn't he train at when he's in town?
Yeah.
I always assumed there was some the Fabella Chavez gym.
Yeah.
Because I would see him working out there prior to fights he's had here in LA in the past. So I assumed there was some sort of
he was always
following.
Even years ago too, he was always in and out of LA getting sparring. And the same thing with Vegas. I think his hometown is Vegas, but he was in and out of Los Angeles a lot. The thing is that there's that trope in boxing that exists, which I completely stand by, which is that you have to beat a champion to get his belt. Right. So I guess the question is whether or not Ugas did enough to beat the champ last night. I thought that perhaps I was okay with either a draw. I would have probably been okay if Ugas would have won the fight, and I would definitely seem to be okay if Shawn Porter won the fight. I know this sounds horrible, I don't have any convictions behind it, but sometimes that's how it is.
So you don't give a shit about the result last night?
Well, I would tell you one thing of watching the fight last night. That the thing is, I think it was probably going on in both of our heads was that, keep him away from Errol Spence and probably keep him away from Mikey too, because different levels.
He's certainly not of the four champions we have. He's certainly not the best one.
No,
so
but
it's
he's boxing more though. We're kind of surprised to see him that he's out there boxing more.
More than being the brawler.
Yeah. He's kind of like there's a little bit of a tug of war, and he's obviously came along to be where he's at, and evolving his craft because he was boxing more. He wasn't just being the football Shawn Porter that you think of as the former running back that's running somebody over. And
I mean, it's good to see. It's good to see the styles. That you can do more than one thing. Obviously,
I know that Leo Santa Cruz. It came out and said that he thought Ugas had won the fight. So, yeah.
Maybe that's the momentum of why the rest of Carson was able to.
And then there's obviously that which I haven't seen on replay when he gets dropped, and I think it was the 11th. And whether or not it was a legitimate drop or not, but I don't know. To be honest with you, when you have the most exciting thing was, knowing that Mikey Garcia and Errol is it next?
This weekend. It's coming up. So this episode comes out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening to this, Saturday is the big fight against Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence, or Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia, I suppose is the proper top billing is Spence. Yeah. I'm rooting for Mikey. It's gonna be tough for him, but I would love to see him pull it off.
Yeah.
We've talked about this many times. I guess we could talk about it one last time on a boxing episode because the fight will be happening on Saturday. Any thoughts leading up to the fight on fight week?
No, I mean, it was. I think it was, you shared sort of the same sentiment with me, which you're sort of amazed to see Mikey Garcia was in Carson last night. But
his brother, they had another guy. You've mentioned this on prior episodes. Yeah. It's a busy month busy couple of months for Robert because he's got all these fighters with fights.
And Mikey was a promoter last night. I mean, that's his role was to be a promoter last night. When you think about, I don't know, if 7 days out from the biggest fight of your career,
big step up.
Yeah, but it's also that these guys know boxing. They've been doing boxing. Mikey's been in world championship corners when he was probably 5 or 8, or walking walking out Fernando, or
it's not overwhelming to him because this is the world he's growing up in.
This is the world.
There's so much around him, so much. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as going into the fight, I mean, obviously things that are mostly speculative, and you kind of just jump to assumptions. Like, of course you're gonna look at Mikey's body. You're like, okay, how's he look? He looks good. He looks ready.
There was a video I was watching. It was the video that I think PBC put out. So like the officially produced sort of like behind the scenes promo cut.
Yeah.
And it was they were going over him in his training camp, and so Robert Garcia and their father are having a conversation. Like the camera was spending a lot of time in the conversation where Senior, the older,
Papa G.
Yeah. He was saying, I think Mikey's got better skills, and we're just gonna be worried about Errol's power. And Robert's going, no, are you kidding me? Mikey's got more power than him. Just saying disregarding that whole notion. So you see the confidence there. But it was funny how they kept on going with like father and son, like.
Yeah.
Great to see the complete confidence and conviction that Robert has in his brother for the strength, but it was kind of a funny bit that they were going, not funny like it was meant to be funny, but the camera crew was really very fixated on this conversation, this sort of side of the gym conversation, while Mikey was just hitting the bag and like full on training camp, but it showed a very real sense of like the gym life and like.
I mean, to have both. The cool thing about you look at some of the fighters that Papa G has had his hands on, and that to me is going to be Fernando Vargas and Robert Garcia and Mikey himself. Is that the skills that and I'm not saying that obviously that Robert doesn't have that, but that team effort of having both Robert and the father there, and probably let the viewers know that ultimately that we're going to be coming out with some videos that explain the skill sets that are being used in these fights coming up, and but
little coaching, a la the Teddy Atlas style he used to do back when ESPN had the Friday Night Fights.
Yeah,
remember when Teddy Atlas used to come out and show you like keys to the fight, what you gotta do,
and then there'll be video analysis.
Trevor's gonna do some of that. We're gonna do a little bit of that for our YouTube channel. So if you're listening on the iTunes, if you're listening on the Spotify,
something to look forward to in the next 10 days, I imagine. So, but the one thing that I think is going to be one of the defining things with the fight, and we've already talked about this, is basically Mikey Garcia's footwork.
Yeah.
And that to me that he uses his feet better than Errol does, and that he's going to be able to line up Errol in ways, or neutralize Errol, I should say, with his footwork.
In very subtle ways that the casual boxing fan wouldn't notice.
Most people aren't going to notice
that. And that's kind of the beauty of it. So it'll be. I mean, I'm excited to learn from this video series.
It's something to say that this is pretty wild to say. Obviously, then when I think about guys that fight southpaw is really great. Obviously, Floyd comes to mind, and it's something that is very, very very telling to say that there's a parallel between how Mikey Garcia goes about fighting southpaws and how Floyd Mayweather goes about fighting southpaws. And then obviously there was probably some influence there, or obviously Mikey is a student of the game and perhaps learned from Floyd and so forth. So as far as everybody's saying there's going to be a one-sided blowout fight, I don't see that happening. Craft-wise, like I've said before on the show, I think that Mikey has a better craft. But hey, Earl's a big, strong guy. Yeah. At the end of the day, I was at, where was I? I can't remember the fights at Nokia or somewhere. Earl to walk by. He appears to be about 5'10". He's a big guy.
That's big, yeah.
Yeah, and Mikey's probably about 5'8", 5'8.5". So, yeah, it's a lot coming up.
We'll see.
Rolly fought last night. Romero. I don't know if you were
tuned in.
You might have been doing some extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about him, obviously, him being in everybody's mouth right now because of the thing that's going on between him and Ryan Garcia, as far as the beef, and Floyd had came out and said that I believe he had put up $250,000, which is the most money that Ryan Garcia would have made to fight Rolly Romero. And I can sort of see why, I guess the talk is that Rolly wanted to fight Gervonta Tank Davis. And, obviously saying, hey, look, I'll make the fight happen with Gervonta Tank Davis. Before you fight Gervonta Tank Davis, why don't you fight Rolly? But just to go out there on record, and say this, they're both very young in their craft. As far as their development is concerned. That goes for Ryan Garcia, that goes for Rolly.
All right, I want you to give a brief description of all three of those fighters for any viewers or listeners that kind of come into this episode and haven't heard of these guys yet.
Oh, we're talking about Gervonta.
Those three, in this discussion, because they're young guns, so not everyone would have gotten the opportunity to see them fight.
I should hope everybody's heard of Gervonta Tank Davis, though.
But we have some listeners that will need to hear a little bit of backstory. We kind of went into deep Twitter beef right there without giving enough background. So give the listeners a little bit of background, and then
I'll start with Gervonta, which is to say that when fighters
he's got arrested, right?
These guys are always, not these, but Gervonta.
What do you mean these guys?
Well, when I think about all these guys from Headhunters, I never heard about the Petersons getting in trouble. Besides, remember when the Petersons got popped for anabolic steroids back in the day? Did you know this? No. He actually had, and we could probably look it up, but I could vaguely remember because I thought it was interesting. And I'll go back to the skill developments of these fighters, but there was somehow something that was getting injected into them that had a time delay on it, as far as when it would release the testosterone. And one of the Petersons, I can't remember which one, got popped for.
All right, well, we're talking about
back to Gervonta.
The three fighters.
When I think about to talk about anything bad about the headbangers, but and even the Adrian Broners necessarily was training over there, but I'm used to Adrian Broner getting in trouble. At this point, we're used to Gervonta sort of getting himself into some sort of trouble. The Petersons, you're not really used to that, but Gervonta is one of these guys that I feel like when you're bringing a young man up, that you can put him in there with there's certain people you're going to protect him from as far as sparring is concerned. There's definitely certain people you're going to protect him from as far as fights are concerned. This guy's well past that. Gervonta is ready for
it. Yeah.
For everybody in his division. He's probably ready for a division up. The guy's an incredible talent. When you hear about a prospective fight between him and Lomachenko, you gotta wonder, because you're dealing with, as far as I'm concerned, Gervonta Davis is one of the quickest steps in the game, which is to say that he can keep you in distance and be driving you with the jab, and all of a sudden cut the distance and let his hands go, and he lets his hands go with such intent that he's getting guys out of there. And he's such a physical guy that when you look at a fight between him and Lomachenko, you got to sit there and think, okay, I got Lomachenko, who's arguably one of the most skilled pound-for-pound fighters out there right now. And then I got Gervonta Davis, who has a skill set that isn't necessarily something that is going to, where someone's doing some YouTube video of the Matrix breakdown. But it's still one of those skill sets that what people don't understand if you're not involved in boxing, that when you do get hit by a real strong, powerful guy like Gervonta Davis, you start acting differently. And when whether you're feeling it on the guard or whether you're blocking it, and a lot of times your ability to move or your ability to feel yourself or swag out or get loose, there's going to be an effect when you're feeling that power on the gloves, and you start getting a little bit stiffer. So I will say this with the potential of a Lomachenko-Gervonta fight, I'm not seeing Loma fight anybody with the kind of power that Gervonta has. And the only other guy that I can think of as far as Lomachenko fighting that was as physical as Gervonta was Salido, and he caught a loss to Salido. So everybody said, well, that's his third fight. I just want to go on record. I told everybody that he was going to lose that fight, and everybody was so high on Lomachenko. This is my
How many years ago was that? You can't.
This is my ego playing out. But yeah, they thought I was crazy. They made fun. But hey, after the fight, I was thinking, why would you have this guy fight this veteran that's very physical on his third fight?
Yeah, it was crazy, but that's Lomachenko's way.
Right.
They went after it.
Yeah.
Time and time again. Yeah. Fast rise up to opportunities for titles.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so
you gotta give respect.
Like, I'm not arguing that Gervonta goes out there and clears out Lomachenko. That would be crazy. But it's an incredible fight.
I would like to see that.
It's like the Rigondeaux fight that happened with Lomachenko, but I think it's a lot,
Hopefully it's not like that.
Not like that, but
that did not go.
It did not go the way that we thought it was going to go. But as far as the possibility of what the fight could be, so Gervonta, I guess not that he needs my consent, but I mean the guy's certified.
The other two guys,
Raleigh, and we'll start with Raleigh.
Sure.
Okay.
Signed to Mayweather.
He signed to TMT. Yeah.
TMT. Okay.
Yeah, I know that the opponent that they had in last night. I was sort of jokingly saying to a friend, like, at least bring in an opponent that looks better. Because can you explain how like an opponent, like you want the opponent to at least have a certain, his body should look.
So you want the A-sider to have, you're building his record. You want him to get wins. You want to progress him.
I was cracking up because the guy.
But you always want the next opponent to be a little bit better than the last.
Yeah.
And not a risk, because think about it as an investment. You as a manager, as a promoter, you've invested all this money into this product, your fighter.
But like this is what I'm poking fun of.
But you want to make it look like it was a good enough opponent. Yeah. So that it's not just a softie at when you're 10 fights in, you're no longer fighting.
With Raleigh's opponent last night, the guy had like Venom trunks on and a T-shirt that it looked like he got out of the dirty hamper bin, right? So like I was just kind of joking that they're still really giving him an opponent that you might expect to come across in a Tijuana show. So Raleigh's development as a fighter, he's going to get
an opponent with a new pair of shoes.
The way that he's coming along as a fighter, he's in a great place to develop his craft and skill. He's in Vegas. There's an incredible amount of work that he's going to come across. You can think of a few places where you want a young fighter like him at. You probably want him at, them to be in Los Angeles. You want them to be in Vegas.
What's his record at now?
I don't know. What's Raleigh's record at? Is it Rolly Romero? 8-0. So he's 8-0. So for me, 8-0, I wish he would have had a better look.
Yeah.
If he's clipping the guy in the first round, they probably don't have the right look for him. As far as development, I know that they want. There's also other.
Gotta get some rounds under his belt.
It's
harder.
It's also too that hey, when you're bringing a fighter up, you don't want them to drink too much of their own Kool-Aid. And if they're constantly clipping people in the first 8 rounds, or I'm sorry, the first 8 fights, you definitely don't want them. You want them to be building their resume, and you also want them to be working on their craft and learning on the job and so forth. If you're giving someone that easy of a look, and it did look like an easy look, that probably might not be appropriate at the 8th fight.
Yeah.
Back to looking at so that just to say with Romero that he isn't necessarily that developed yet. Same thing with Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, I think that we can. One of the most exciting things is that he ended up with Chepo, with Canelo's trainer. Not to knock that the training relationship that he had with his father, but that it's good that he's with Canelo's trainer. That
it's progression.
Feel like if you give the guy 2 or 3 years and really develop his craft, then perhaps in 2 or 3 years from now, I will go on record with this, that if they put him in front of Gervonta in the next 1.5 to 2 years, I don't give Ryan Garcia a chance at all.
There's no chance.
Gervonta will stop him.
Yeah.
I also will go on record with this after seeing the sparring between Rolly and seeing the sparring between Ryan. They probably don't want him in front of Rolly either. Not now. He doesn't know how to deal with that sort of physical guy. Rolly's one of these guys that comes in there who doesn't, to quote Jesse Reed, isn't trying to make the fight look pretty. He doesn't care. He's going to go in there and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And until Ryan Garcia, a guy that we've been pretty accustomed to in this last couple bouts, a lot of clinching, a lot of hugging. Rolly's not going to make that agreement. I think when you do clinch him up, there's certain guys in there that are going to start using their head. They're going to start using their neck. They're going to start lifting you up, or even tapping you to the thigh, whatever it is. He's one of these guys. He's not in there to make an agreement. You should probably keep Ryan away from Rolly. I think that's why when a Floyd sees that Ryan Garcia is talking about Gervonta Davis, he says, "Hey man, I don't even think you can get past my guy Rolly."
Yeah.
And let's be honest, $250K is the most money that the highest amount of money that has been offered to a guy like Ryan Garcia specifically.
How much do you think he's made in his other?
Well, he's probably got such a big following. I wouldn't be surprised if he's making 40 to 60K. Let's be honest. Without that social media,
quick rounds.
The Ryan Garcia is a
he's
star.
He's a young guy. He has a lot of time to be making a lot of money.
He's got a lot of time to make a lot of money.
And he is the whole Golden Boy package.
If Golden Boy,
he'll be a big product.
Emulates what they did with Canelo. You got to remember, Canelo was a guy that Ricky Hatton's brother gave him a hard time. I believe that he had him hurt. But if they emulate that, if they go and model Ryan Garcia after Canelo, you have two guys that are great athletic fighters. Canelo is obviously, in my opinion, one of the best fighters of our era right now, and is doing smart things like going up and fighting at 160 to try to solidify his legacy and put himself in a position where he'll be looked at as one of the best boxers of our era. If you go about it and you model Ryan Garcia's development like that, you're going to, 2 or 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, Ryan Garcia is if he keeps his ego in place, and I say that being real, doesn't get ahead of himself. Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis's name should not be in your mouth. Yeah, and that's just that's just me looking out for you. That's just with all the best intent. Maybe perhaps in 2 or 3 years.
Give it some time.
Give it some time and development and so forth. But yeah.
But I think what it is pre-build.
Yeah.
They're building it now.
They're building
for
it now.
a couple years now.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So they're in a sense they're doing it right, because it's like if I want to I'm trying to fight somebody and you're holding me back. Like, hold me back. That's a little kids on the playground. Player will say, well, yeah, Oscar's gonna hold him back, but he's gonna bark and bark and bark because he knows 3 years down the line this is a fight and you're building it now. It takes a long time to build a big fight.
Yeah,
and
it takes a long time to build a big fight, build a fighter skill set, build the craft, have them mentally ready for another real star.
Yeah.
Not when we look at the big fights that could be pay-per-view bouts. Honestly, Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis one day could be a pay-per-view bout.
If pay-per-view's still around.
Yeah,
I don't know. Let's talk about it. We got a few reasons why pay-per-view. I mean, we all know DAZN, and I'm a fan of DAZN. I'm excited on the concept. I think it's great that Triple G got pulled in.
Yeah, Triple G
there's momentum now. We got Canelo signed with DAZN.
Triple G's gonna
obviously Daniel's
his career with DAZN.
Yeah. Daniel Jacobs.
Billy Joe Sanders, right?
I think he was going to fight Demetrius Andrade, who is on DAZN. So basically, they have the whole middleweight division, which is fantastic because it's a good division right now. As far as Billy Joe Sanders, I don't know if has a sign with DAZN, but because I know he's with Frank Warren, so he's not with Matchroom. But the fact that he was going to fight on DAZN before he got busted for PEDs means that he'll probably be fighting on DAZN next. Anyway. Tyson Fury is going to ESPN.
Oh, he's not going to DAZN.
He's going to ESPN. Okay. So that is big news. That's good for the heavyweight division. We got, we have an exciting division once again.
Yeah.
We have him coming to, free TV. Well, it might be on Plus, but it's good that he's coming to America and an American audience.
Yeah.
I think he, got some new fans in his last fight with Deontay Wilder.
Who really won that night was boxing.
Yeah, for sure.
So even if you got a tough fight, and whether or not you had Tyson Fury up or you had Deontay Wilder up,
Supposedly, Dillian White, who's another British fighter, is going to be in talks with ESPN, and I don't know if that's been finalized, but that mean we'll have two.
Have you watched Dillian White fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a fight with him and Tyson Fury is a high possibility.
It's a great fight. Dillian White is not coming to lay down for anybody.
Yeah.
The fight that I think that sticks out to me is the Chisora fight. It's obviously too, hearing about Dillian White, that through the grapevine, that there is this fighter over there that was, I guess, how do we describe? He's almost like he's like a blue collar worker almost. Like guy, very rough, very physical, very come forward, very headstrong. He can box too though, so to give him credit. But yeah, a lot of great matches. You think about the Triple G Canelo thing. If Canelo was they're like a collective thing with DAZN and Golden Boy, I can never.
So
this is where I need
Canelo has signed a big contract with DAZN, and Golden Boy is now part of the
family.
The family. So Matchroom Boxing, which is Eddie Hearn's promotion company, one of the biggest promoters in England. Matchroom Boxing and Golden Boy are both now family with, they're both working with DAZN, so there'll be a lot of shows on DAZN, the streaming platform, that are from these two big promoters. In addition to that, I think DeBello's already had shows on DAZN.
Yeah.
So a lot of Top Rank is still doing shows with ESPN. It's almost reignited their relationship with ESPN.
Yeah.
And that's going well. But as HBO has disintegrated and no longer doing boxing, we have other networks.
People are
really
picking up the slack. I actually think
it's really good. I like it. I'm bullish on the streaming future. It's good. Pay-per-view really did kill our sport in a sense, because it sucked people for all they had.
Well, I remember that some of the pay-per-views were getting up to $99, right? Was it Conor and Floyd, $99?
Yeah, $100.
Yeah, $100. Yeah. So obviously, the good thing about, you want people to be enjoying boxing. You want people to have access to boxing, the great boxing.
You don't want to feel robbed every single time, and
no.
And it's like a gotcha.
I'm gonna say, just to give everybody a little bit of advice about how not to get robbed on a show. Is it typically when you have
just don't buy it.
Yeah, no. just don't buy it.
Just go to Reddit. Go to Reddit r/.
What's it? The Russian VIP box. Just go to RussianVIPbox.net and find it streaming. Now, the advice I would give is that when you have two A-siders that are fighting each other, not to say that Conor's an A-sider, so kill that, but
it's a joke.
Yeah. But when you have two great fighters that are fighting each other, typically you're not going to get the fight that you're hoping for, because whatever happened in order for them to get to that place. One, we know that they could take a shot.
Yeah.
Because they got to that place.
Right.
Number two, they're very crafty. They're highly skilled fighters. They're very defensively responsible. They're not going to run themselves into any dumb shit.
Right.
You're not going to. And so when you get these two A-siders that fighting each other, it should be like a night where you have a glass of red wine and I don't know, maybe some brie cheese or something. But you should just appreciate it for its art form. But if you want to tune in and watch some people,
But that's not what the public tunes in
If the
for.
public wants to see people get clipped, this is the one thing that I do like about the UFC platform versus the boxing platform, is seeing people get knocked out last night. Imagine they were putting all the undercards accessible to the public, because you would have gotten your knockout fix. If you're watching 18 bouts and 12 of them or 10 of them are ending up in a knockout, then you're going to feel good. And this is what I do like about UFC and mixed martial arts, is that they put all the fights on, and people do get their fix. Oftentimes, when you see a fighter that's, let's just say hypothetically 18-0 with 15 knockouts, and now they finally are putting them on TV against another guy that's maybe 16-2.
He's finally not fighting.
He's getting his opponents. He's getting his test.
Yeah. So you're likely to see what would, for someone who's fiending for a knockout, would likely be a possibly a boring fight for them, is actually the first good fight.
First good
test, and two good fighters.
And you get to see a fighter pull ahead, and you get to sort of see whether or not this fighter has what it takes. Yeah. And it's going to be speaking of tests. I don't know if you checked into Anthony Yarde versus Reeves. You know who Anthony Yarde is, a guy from. It's a pretty interesting. The guy's a real physical light heavyweight. He's got like a body that kind of reminds you of Anthony Joshua or just a really built dude, or David Haye. So his next fight is Kovalev. So that's why we're not discussing him now. Anthony Yarde has not seen anybody like Kovalev. Just to be, I think watching Anthony Yarde work in his training, and I'm going to say his trainer's name wrong, which is Tunde. I'm not going to even pretend to try to say his last name. They train fighters out of London. I've watched him and the other assistant train fighters. They do a great job with their guys. I think that, I could be wrong, that maybe perhaps they should pump the brakes a little bit before giving him Kovalev. Because it's a test. And no, I'm sorry, it's not a test. I think that's not even appropriate. Like, I just don't know why. It's like if you know a guy just got done with algebra class with this Reeves guy. Why are we jumping to calculus? So, and that's, yeah.
So, Kovalev versus Bivol.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins?
Yeah, Dimitri fought.
Dimitri fought last night against Joe Smith Jr.
Uh-huh.
Joe Smith Jr. had some moments.
Yeah.
10th round, end of 10th round, he hits him with a big shot, and it almost looked like he went back to the corner. Bivol went back to the corner affected, and I was rooting hard for Joe last night, and I was hoping, man, he's got 2 more rounds to knock him out. It was a little bit too much of a test it was too much for Joe as far as so he finished the fight.
Demetrius
is a very good boxer, very strong, but a very skilled boxer.
Yeah. So I'm not.
But what do you think? What do you think happens between Bivol and
it's
Kovalev?
the same thing. You got a kid that's doing algebra, so why are we going to bring the kid to the calculus test? I don't think that Dimitri's a great fighter. He's a great prospect. He's yet to impress me. It's one thing to see him taking out opponents, which is great. But he's as far as you looking at the light heavyweight division, knowing that we had one of the most skilled fighters that we've seen in the last 20 years, which was Andre Ward, retire. Knowing Kovalev too is incredibly skilled. And God, I forgot who Kovalev was with Buddy McGirt his last fight, but he looked good. And so I just don't think whether it's Anthony Yarde or it's Dimitri, that Kovalev still has a fight in him. And I definitely, Kovalev, just for everybody to know, I don't know if everybody knows this, he killed a man in the ring. Do you know about this?
Yeah, you told me about it. I actually hadn't heard of it until you.
The only reason why I bring it up is if you had this idea, this Cold War, Russian mobster boxer that had no empathy or sympathy for life, I think that's Kovalev. So, and I know that Dimitri. I know Dimitri is from the same part of the country. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
I think he's not from Ukraine. He's from another.
He's from one of the stands, but
But I'll just say, hey, look, man.
Turkmenistan.
Yeah. Looking at Dimitri's development and so forth, they should probably get him a couple more looks. I'm not completely sold on the kid.
So Kovalev crushes?
I think, if I had if you're asking me to pick one, I'm picking Kovalev. Yeah, I pick Kovalev on both Anthony Yarde. And actually, the fight that probably should happen is Anthony Yarde and Dimitri. They're both, and if I had to really pick one as far as if we're looking at athleticism and we're looking at the ability to do things in the ring, Dimitri's a great fighter, has a very good way about setting people up. It's also very Eastern European. He's a very up and down fighter. Very stands tall. Works off of his jab, works off with the left uppercut, left hook to the body, and so forth. But as far as I'm looking at a fighter's development and thinking that hey, this guy Kovalev is not one of those guys. I mean, even I bring this up because specifically with this fight with Bernard Hopkins, who we know is one of the obviously does as well as he does to fight into his late 40s and maybe even 50s.
50s, dude.
Yeah. Because skills pay the bills, point blank.
Yeah.
And so when you got a guy, and not to mention that too, when you have another fighter that arguably with this fight with Andre Ward, that once again, in my opinion, could have been a draw, or if I had to really pick, and I love Andre Ward. God, I'm a huge Andre Ward fan. If I had to really pick, I would have probably picked Kovalev, but was comfortable with the draw, and was a little sort of taken off by the because you got to remember Kovalev is a champ too. They're both going for belts that night. You can't make the argument that you got to beat a champ to become a champ and so forth. Right? They're both coming in with belts that night. Looking at the Kovalev Andre Ward fight, number one, and knowing how good he did against another craftsman, knowing how good he did against Bernard Hopkins, doesn't make any agreements. You get close to the guy, he pushes you off. He's very physical. He keeps you at the end of his punches. He knows how to control you, knows how to control your head, knows how to be physical, knows how to be mean, knows how to be nasty. No, they should probably keep both these young men away from them. But as far as potential for a fighter and what he could do athletically, Anthony Yarde, to me, and obviously I might be having a bias right now, just to keep it real because it's a more aesthetically pleasing style to me. Looks like he could probably develop more as a fighter than Dimitri can. I'm not going to sign off on Dimitri like that. Fun to watch though,
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So keeping it real, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't. A lot of times I think that we get caught up. We have to sort of remember whoever it is that they're putting on TV in front of us. Specifically HBO was, if I remember correctly, was pushing Dimitri before their way out.
I don't remember, but it sounds like it's possible. They were, I think that they were. I don't know if they were big on Eastern Europeans on the way out, or if there was just a lot to choose from on the way out. But
I think they were too big on the Eastern Europeans.
Too big?
Yeah, I think we probably have had this conversation out here on the pod before, but how hard is it to make an Eastern European a star? And
it's really hard.
And even if you look at Lomachenko's numbers, Lomachenko's numbers as far as what he was doing on as view wise, wasn't that Lomachenko isn't this huge star that he's made out to be, or was being made out to be, specifically by HBO.
Just the numbers haven't followed the skills.
No, Lomachenko's an incredibly skilled fighter. Like I said, I think that he's definitely in the top 5 pound for pound as far as skill wise, fighters out there right now.
He looks like he's from Huntington Beach, but if he were from Huntington Beach,
he'd be a huge
those
star.
Numbers would be there.
Yeah.
Problem is, doesn't speak English very well.
Good looking kid, very handsome. Guy can juggle.
Doesn't have that,
hand-eye coordination is like, he's got the hand-eye.
Guy can juggle, guy can dance,
He's like a cat, a jaguar. Great color ensembles in all of his outfits. Got everything that you could think of.
High tech.
Has a name like high tech. Everything you can think of about this kid is a star, but he's Ukrainian, doesn't speak English that well, and but my thing about it with I remember with Duva was doing a lot of business with HBO, pushing Kovalev.
Yeah.
They
did a good job with Kovalev, honestly.
Yeah, well, because Kovalev at the end of the day can fight.
Yeah.
And he's the crusher.
Well, if you knock motherfuckers out. That's
period. If you're putting people,
as John Brown says, at the end of the day, all that matters. John Brown, legend of the amateur boxing community, but he had some quote. It said it doesn't really matter what the elements are, but at the end of the day, if you can knock motherfuckers out, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough to make it happen. And Kovalev was a guy that was just hurting people.
Yeah, hurting people. And earned that name. And had a temperament that matched his name, the Crusher.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, I don't remember what show it was on, but there was a kind of a color commentary fill-in on one of Kovalev's fights, and he was telling the story of when Kovalev. I hope this is right. I hope this is Kovalev, but Kovalev, when he was an amateur and he wanted to turn pro, he was saying to the coach he wanted to give him a look.
Yeah.
Like, he was almost nervous I don't have a pro style.
Oh yeah, no, you're talking about hold on. You're talking about the iconic trainer. Oh man, I met this guy. Oh,
the coach was like,
he was involved.
He was involved. Like, are you kidding me?
He was involved with Evander Holyfield.
I think.
God, it's gonna, and he oversees a lot of the Russian fighters that were coming over for Kathy, and it's not.
Anyway, the idea being that the Kovalev as an amateur was nervous. Hey, maybe I don't have a pro style, and then this coach that we are failing to grab the name on was like, "Are you kidding me? You have like incredible, like you have a devastating power. Like that's not your problem at all. Let's build your skills. Power is not the issue."
For any of you listeners out there that perhaps are involved in boxing, or you're thinking about one day taking an amateur fight or whatever, if you've got power, don't work on it.
Yeah.
You don't
work on skills.
This drives.
It's not going anywhere.
It drives me crazy. Like people, in boxing they'll say that you were, a guy was born with power essentially. Either they have it or they don't have it, right? You don't hear about some guy that couldn't punch himself out of a wet paper bag and all of a sudden is clipping everybody. That just doesn't
really happen.
That doesn't happen. But it'll drive me a little nuts. Sometimes you'll see young fighters getting developed. There's a guy that came into Jackrabbits last week. It's like
Jackrabbits is the gym in Long Beach that I works at.
And guy is 100. Let's hope this trainer doesn't watch the podcast. But, hey, even if he does, I'm just keeping it real. Kid's 115, 120, has no experience, and I could hear the pad cracking. Just
which trainer is this? The white boy?
No, not Red. It's another trainer. And we're talking in code over here. So, but another trainer who actually has had a couple national champions in opens and so forth. So a respectable amateur trainer. I can hear the pad just that there's that noise. It's like a snare drum. So I'm sitting there watching, and I said,
feels badass, man. Like, everyone else in the gym.
Right. I said, can I hold?
Got your attention.
Can I hold pads for him a little bit? He said, yeah, sure. So I hold pads for him, and immediately what I heard matches what I feel now. And I said to the kid, I said, how much experience do you have? He said, I've only been doing this for like 6 months. And you're looking at the kid's build, and some kids just have like a great athletic build to them.
Yeah. Like
they're just proportionally, the symmetry of them looks like, you sort of, and the kid could punch, man. I mean, like, I had another trainer go in there. I even go in there, same thing, holds for him. We're both looking at each other. So Ivan and I are talking off to the side saying, man, you know what you need to do with this kid? One, we need to figure out, can he take a punch? How does he act when he gets punched? Is he a fighter? Just because a kid can hit a pad doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
What happens when punches are going after him? But man, if he can, then we should be
work on everything else. We don't need to worry about power. We're good.
Drilling him to death.
Exactly. Yeah,
literally every drill you can imagine, because whatever it is that I'm feeling on this kid that has little experience in several months, it's already there. And I'm sorry, I've never felt any, for me personally, another guy that was around that weight crack a pad that hard. But I watched his trainer afterwards, and the trainer's just like, dig.
I mean, maybe, but we're also maybe just getting the kid interested in boxing. It's been 6 months, but
I can always tell.
That comes next.
I know what kids are always interested in boxing. This is my little test, and this has to do with whether or not you've taken yourself to Big Five or wherever it is and bought yourself some wrestling shoes. So to me, if a kid has made an investment on some $50 wrestling shoes, he definitely probably has some aspirations to do something on boxing, or let alone boxing shoes, which could be like $100 to $200. But if you got that,
then you got to use the internet. You can't find Big Five.
Go
searching.
But if you got that pop, don't work on everything else besides that pop. We're talking. Just fill them in, since we're just freestyling today. If you ever want to me, the fighter that had the most devastating pop that I've ever seen is Julian Jackson.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. I was listening. I think is he getting inducted to the Boxing Hall of Fame
this
year?
He better be. Yeah.
I think I heard it's like coming up in a couple of weeks. Something on the Zone broadcast last night. They were talking about it because the Bivol Smith fight was in I think it was in Verona, New York, which isn't too far from the Hall of Fame, which is in upstate New York. I forgot which town. and they were talking about the new upcoming class. And I think Julian Jackson is in this class, if I remember correctly. I can't remember if they said he's in this next class or if they were just vouching for him.
Yeah.
Someone to check out.
I'm surprised Julian Jackson hasn't got indicted or indicted.
Indicted is a whole other.
That's a whole other conversation. Inducted already. Yeah, I don't. But if we don't have
looking forward to that.
We don't have the computer up today. But if you guys are,
they know where to find it. YouTube.
Search Julian Jackson. And if you think that Mike Tyson was a puncher, this guy was literally. It looked like people had gotten shot by a shotgun, and it's some devastating power. That to me, anytime someone says, "Well, who's the hardest puncher of all time?" I've never seen anybody crack anybody like Julian Jackson was cracking people and put them out. Just want to mention Mike McCallum knocking out Julian Jackson though, because
that's a good one to watch.
Mike McCallum was one of my favorite fighters growing up. So, anyways, yeah. Next
week, stay tuned, guys. We're gonna have another guest on. We might go back and forth in this fashion where we do a kind of a news episode with just me and Trevor talking about boxing, and then more of a human interest piece following that. We haven't quite figured out. We're happy you're here for the ride here on the boxing podcast, but guests coming next week, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we might be getting out of our studio here.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get out of the studio. This shithole is
no. It's a lot of things that are coming up that are exciting to look. That we're working on, and
hopefully some guests that we will need to go to.
Yeah.
And it'll be good.
Yeah.
It'll be a new opportunity for us and for the listeners to.
We got a bunch of stuff in the works. We're gonna give you different looks.
So please subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on iTunes, subscribe there. YouTube channel, you can hit subscribe.
Hit the smash button.
Hit the smash the subscribe button. I think
and share it with your friends.
Hit the smash button is something else.
Yeah, I'd heard the dude from boxing.
I haven't been on that app yet. Is it Smash app?
Is there a Smash app?
No, kidding.
You would know, right? So anyways.
Like you would.
Yeah, you suck.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm Garrity McOsker on Instagram. Boxing Podcast also on Instagram. You can find some of our content there. Sign up for the Boxing TLDR newsletter. That was the genesis of this whole project. Started about 2 years ago. It's a great little newsletter. He writes on it sometimes. I write on it every week. He writes on it every once in a while. Tune in there. Thank you for subscribing. You can't follow him on social media because he's on the run.
Yeah, on the run.
So he's not anywhere. Follow Jackrabbits. What is it called? Jackrabbits?
It's World Famous Jackrabbits.
World Famous Jackrabbits on Instagram. And then on Twitter, Volgarity, VOLGARRITY.
We have an Instagram Boxed In, right?
Boxed In, I already said that.
I'm not listening.
Tune in there. I'm doing more boxing content on there every day. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys next week.